think is the blockage for full disclosure? And because other countries have come out with the fact that there is a UFO presence and that there are documents and there are sightings. Other countries have done it. What do you think is the blockage?
Well, the blockage, I think, is really a desire on the part of a very small group in the United States to keep a lot of secrets to themselves and not to share them with either other people in their own country or with the world. And why they're doing this, whether there's a financial advantage to the United States or a financial advantage to the oil industry, for example, of keeping the existence of exotic fuels a secret, I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure that there's somebody that's benefiting or think that they're benefiting from the power or the advantage, monetary advantage, of maintaining this exclusive little club that they've got, which knows a lot of things that the rest of us don't know.
So I think that the significance of this is that when we first started this effort in 2001, which was actually the culmination of 8 years of assembling witnesses and whistleblowers and documents, there was about 40 or 50% of people thought that some aspect of the UFO matter was real. Now it's almost 80%, and the polls have shown that the information has gotten out there to the point where the vast majority of the public, not just the United States, but throughout the world, believe that these are real, and it's accepted. What's not happened yet is any U.S. government announcement, but the U.S. government is lagging behind other governments around the world. For example, we have amazing developments in the last 15 months, since the spring of 2007, where the French Space Agency released about 100,000 pages of previously classified documents from their investigations and reports. And of course they're in French, but we have someone working on trying to translate some of those and get the best ones to us. Someone I just met with recently in Montreal last week. And so on top of that, the British government has just released this year several thousand new documents on information and investigations that they had classified. And a few weeks ago, the Vatican came out with a statement about the likelihood of intelligent life in the universe, and that they should be viewed as intelligent beings and children of God, just as we all are. And that, of course, was from the Vatican chief astronomer at the Vatican Observatory. So what we're seeing is that in Europe and in other places around the world, there's big a movement afoot for bringing all this information out, letting the world know we're not alone, and moving forward.
Tell me, so many people in the know, like astronauts, military people, you as ex-Minister of Defense, want to address this question, and even the Vatican has come forth and made the statement that the ET is our brother and sister. How do you think that we can approach this with the general public so that there is no panic and no pressure and no change in the status quo? Or do you think there will be a change in the status quo?
I think the public is prepared to accept it. Certainly if it is revealed in layers and not all in one fell swoop, because it takes getting used to. I went through this too. You start out knowing a little bit and saying, well, this is fine, and these people are benign, and they've got a lot to teach us. And one of the things that comes through loud and clear from all the research that I've done, that they are in fact more spiritual than we are, that we're less spiritually advanced than they are. And so we should look at them not as enemy, but as brothers and sisters, and try and work with them for our own benefit and theirs as well. But I think, you have talked to a lot of people who realize that at some stage, this UFO file was turned over to industry. And the US government lost control of it. And ever since then, and it's a long time back, it goes right back to Eisenhower's day, and this was the reason that he was so concerned about the military-industrial complex. He said that we should beware of them and keep an eye on them, because they would do things that were in their interests and not necessarily in our interests. And this, I believe, is exactly what has happened. That a small group of people benefit from this aura of fear. And you know Dr. Carol Rosin, as I do, and she worked with Werner von Braun for some time. And he kept warning her after he sort of mellowed that this industrial military complex had to have an enemy in order to justify such huge military expenditures when people are starving all over the world and dying from lack of medical care and so on. And he said first it will be the communists, and they had a good run at the communists. And then he said it will be the terrorists, and now they're having a good run at the terrorists. And then he said it will be the extraterrestrials, and now they're trying to get money to establish a base on the moon and do other things, which some of us feel is probably more military oriented than it is scientifically oriented, at least as much so. And without really the American people ever having given sanction, they have no mandate to do that. No government has run on the platform of spending public money for the militarization of space. On the contrary, I think most people say, hey, this is a common area. It should be available for the utilization of all mankind and for the betterment of all mankind. But we've got this roadblock, as long as a small, well, I call them cabal in the book, who are the hardcore of the shadow government that everyone talks about, which I also talk about in the book, refuse to come clean, and I think that they're going to have to come clean at some stage, and Congress is the organization that's going to have to force them to do that.
Unfortunately, the United States is sort of dragging its feet on this, and it's because the United States is the one that's sitting on the majority of the really big energy technology breakthroughs that are being kept secret for what they claim to be national security reasons, but in reality they're being kept secret because of the fact that once this information is known, we're not going to need oil and gas and coal. One of the things that most people don't think of when they see all the sensational stuff on a Larry King Live show or some other show is that the reason for all the ridicule and the secrecy around the issue is because the intelligence community has worked very closely with the economic powers and financial interests that are very concerned with people knowing that these objects are real, because if they know they're real and they see how they're moving, they're going to know that they're not using a solid rocket booster or a jet engine or any kind of propulsion system that we use on the Earth today in the non-classified world. And so when that happens, people are going to say, well, gee, why aren't we running our homes with these kinds of new energy and physics and big breakthroughs in technology? And of course the public will demand that, because it's very well known that the so-called electromagneto-gravitic systems, the anti-gravity systems, and the other zero-point or free energy systems have been studied and kept in classified projects for at least 50 or 60 years, and in the case of some of these energy developments, probably closer to 100 years. And so when the public finds that out, they're going to say, wait a minute, why am I spending $120 to fill up my pickup truck if you're a workman who has a contracting company? Or why am I spending $5,000 or $10,000 a year to heat my home if you're using oil in the East Coast or Northeast or New England, when there are all these alternative systems there? And why are the presidential candidates talking about spending $30 billion to study how to use coal more efficiently when we don't need to be blowing up mountains and dragging coal out of the earth and haven't needed to do so for decades. These are all going to be very, very prominent questions that will be asked by the public and the scientists, and this is why the secrecy has continued, particularly in the United States, that is the world's largest economic power. We're still, even with all our economic problems, 1/3 of the world's economic activity in the United States, and so, or more. And I think that this is, when you look at it, this is really the crux of the secrecy. Of course, you don't hear this sort of analysis when you just see someone get on the television and say, gee, I was with the Air Force and we saw this object and this happened or that happened, because the big news media have sanitized out of their reporting the really meat of the subject. They want to keep it very superficial and very light, but they don't want to let it go into any deeper discussion.
Do you look at the whole extraterrestrial question as a benign question? Because people that are in the know are in two camps, good and bad, or evil and good extraterrestrial presence. How do you look at it? Is it not so that if it were not benign in some way, they may have done something to us long ago when we invented the atom bomb?
Yeah, I think they're benign, but they're, as you well know, several species that we know about. And of course, the United States government sometimes has told people that there's one species that is not, but they never say who it is or which one, and consequently there's no way of checking it out without this kind of disclosure that we're demanding, because they may just be putting us on as an excuse for spending hundreds of billions of dollars to arm Earth against the extraterrestrials. And this is, I think, something that bothers me a lot or concerns me.